So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end. As per Yeshayahu the prophet, then we find ourselves during the time of the restoration and reduction. Restoration because of the 61st chapter is stating then the returning of the holy cities as per instructions, and then the time of reduction from Yeshayahu the 24th chapter. So then, there is a very controversial topic regarding then tithes. Should you give your tithes, your 10%? If you are not from the holy cities, you are not bound to do it. That's the truth of it. Those people who are then categorized as Gentiles, they have no obligation in giving their taxes, as far as the 10% giving as religious. There is no link with it, because we don't have any tabernacling yet. So then, there is a section in Exodus related with it. And then, should we pay then the tithes? Absolutely not. There is no requirement of payment of any kind of a tithes from Gentile living. There is no requirement. Those requirements were given to the set apart while they were tabernacling on the land. So let's ask this question. Is the land then being tabernacling? No, there is no tabernacling on the land. So why are they bothering with tithes? What is the requirement of paying your tithes once a year during the Feast of Tabernacles or Sukkah? Then you give your 10% to the tabernacling. Is there tabernacling? No. So why are you giving your money for? You may want, at your own decision, help in those areas of maybe teaching of the word or then galaying of the word, but then you give at your own decision. You are not bound to give any kind of a tithe of 10%. So let's make absolutely clear there is no instructions related with the Gentile tithe given. You can read for yourself. Those holy instructions were given because tabernacling was active. Is tabernacling active? No. Not yet. So never again be in a situation, oh, you are so guilty because you are not paying your 10%. You are not required. You may decide to give a portion of your income to those who are galaying, but you have to make sure they are teaching the truth. Because if you give your money to those who are teaching garbage, then you are stupid. Because the Messiah says, search the scriptures diligently. Do we find tabernacling yet? No. Why are you giving your money for? So then when you decide to set aside a certain amount of your own decision, nobody is going to lead you how much you are going to give. The Creator is not going to say, give this much to this person because of some sort of galaying. He is not going to say, because it's not on instructions. But then sometimes when you receive galah, when you receive revelations from an area where you understand there are sections of it that should be then reinforced in order for the continuation of the galaying, then you may decide to do on your own. What would be the best course of action? Asking the person what kind of statements they have, what are their obligations, and should post them. Then you make a decision yourself. You don't have to be guided by heaven. Because the guidance by heaven is made when once a year, Feast of Tabernacles or Sukkah, then you give your 10% to tabernacling. There is not tabernacling in the earth yet. Those were concocted during the time of the 1,000 years of deceit of saying, oh, a person in the world then should give tithes. It does not have any indication anywhere. You give of your own choice. So then get rid of these understanding of yours. Speaking of then this tithe, the situation where you are not bound to do it. What about there's so many ministries around? Well, you give what you want. But then if you give your resources to those who are teaching trash, then you are stupid. Because not only you are then being in line with those teaching junk, but then you are part of the junk. And the Creator does not like lying and cheating. So when Galah is then given, you decide, no, don't say, oh, because God led me to do this. No, you have done because you understand Galah. You understand the person is coming with Galahing, revealing the holy instructions. Then you decide how much you give, if any. But don't be religious and punctilious because all the scripture says then you have to pay your tithes. No, it does not. Where is tabernacling? What's the objective? Tabernacling. There is no tabernacling yet, so what are you give your money for? Only those people, they are then galahing the word, teaching you that there is then tabernacling. Tabernacling is not yet, so you don't have to pay your 10%. What is proper is proper. What is outside of the instructions, it's simply optional. It is true the Creator has stated, for instance, bring your first fruit. But those are related with tabernacling, and then the land where tabernacling is found at. The rest of the world, they got nothing to do with it. When tabernacling is then re-established, then there are relationships of Gentiles and holy cities, where then Gentiles, by their own choice, they come to the holy cities and they give their 10%. Because there is a limitation of this relationship of Gentiles and the holy cities. But do you work for the land where tabernacling is at? No. Some people, they come from miles away. They are not part of tabernacling and then the laws of the land. So let's make sure then, if you are giving your resources to those people teaching garbage, you are part of the garbage. Not only you are part of the garbage, then you are stupid. What else can a person say? There is no tabernacling? Why are you giving your money for? That's why we have a country repleted with scoundrels. And then rather than teaching what the Messiah said to do, such as giving your taxes, Tithes are not part of it. Taxes are mandatory. But then when you have a system where then people, they don't do what they should do, then the government uses the authority given and makes sure people are paying taxes. Is the government doing it? No. The government is not doing it. Not 100% as they should have. There are products coming to our country where there is absolutely no tax paid. So the government is faltering. Either we do what the Messiah said or we don't do what the Messiah said. He precisely said, give to the government, or belongs to the government. How much should we give to the government? Now let's evaluate what Ibrahim had done. After the war and the spoils, what did he do? He visited with Melchizedek, the first non-set-apart priest and king. Wait a minute. King is speaking of Gentile level, speaking of government. He gave 10%. He was king and priest. What can you deduce? Himself as a person, he gave 10%. What do we have today? Later came the separation of government and priest. So you give 10% to the government, you give 10% to tabernacling. It's very obvious. Maximum of 10%. If everybody is giving 10% of their taxes, it should work fine. That's why then the Creator said, give to the government what belongs to the government. Is tabernacling available? No. How much should you give to the government? 20%? No, you give 10%. Because you must reserve the understanding there is tabernacling and there is then tithe that should be given to tabernacling. You give to the government 10%. If the government goes beyond 10%, then they are stealing. They must find a way of maintaining 10%. Because the example was given. Was Melchizedek involved with tabernacling? No, he was not. However, the Creator used Melchizedek as then a representative of the Messiah that would come in the future. He was a representation of the future Messiah, because Ibrahim did understand what the Messiah would be like in the very future yet. "10% of the government, 10% tithes. 80% is yours. Plenty of money. But then when the government, they don't do their job, and then they get mixed up with a novel of NRA, for instance, gun control. And they are so strong of speaking of gun control, where they should be equal, if not more, regarding taxes. And they are not doing their job. Did the Messiah said, you should control your guns? Because it's safety. Let the police deal with it. That's why I have the police force. When you find scoundrels with arms, they don't know how to use it and they abuse, then they go to jail. The police handles it. If they don't know how to handle their problems, get out of the police force, hire somebody else to know how to do the job. What is NRA? Army Auxiliary. Not only this, if you read the original document related with NRA, you find there was then a person in each state responsible of organizing the militias. And at times, depending upon the situation, they had to report to this person in charge of this state the inventory of the arms, obviously including the person that knows how to use the weapon. In turn, those people responsible for those states, they report directly to the president of the country. That's how it should be done. Simple and plain. The document is very clear. And then these days, where this NRA is yet an Army Auxiliary, then the president tries to go against NRA, where he himself should be receiving then the reports from each of those persons responsible in each state when there is a draft situation, because draft is then a militia. What is a militia? It's an auxiliary of the army. When you have a draft, what you are saying is this: militia, come to duty. The status never changed. But then you find a president that doesn't know how to read a document. Why is he against NRA or gun control, where then NRA holds the title of Army Auxiliary? You know, he's being stupid. He doesn't know how to read an ancient document. And the document is very clear. Maybe because he was not an army person or a military person. NRA holds yet Army Auxiliary status. Scoundrels, they have to be dealt with the police. If they don't know how to do the job or control then the population, drop the badge, find somebody else. Now, mixing up NRA with scoundrels and then police and then comes the government and president. Wait a minute. What is the objective? Let's find out what is the objective of the situation. What is it? They're dealing with the Army Auxiliary. They have the forward motion of maintaining a militia. They control the inventory of these people. They are not responsible for their morals. Those are enforced by the police. So if there is a problem where then people must be drafted, then those people responsible in each state, they give a report to the president, these many people we have available for the draft. Draftee is a militia. And they say these people, they have knowledge on how to handle arms. At least a fourth of the army's work is already done. But then the president knows, or maybe he doesn't know. NRA holds yet the status of Army Auxiliary. Is there a document that has removed the status of NRA from the main document? No, it doesn't. So why he's trying then to have this situation of gun control for? He's working against the very ideal of NRA. He shows a lack of respect, ignorance, plain stupidity. If there is a problem other than an army auxiliary, go to the police. There are other situations much more important, such as taxation. The Messiah said, give to the government what belongs to the government. Every parcel come to our country must be taxed. The system from the east is coming. So far, IMF is against us, and it is absolutely deadly. If IMF is stating this country have a financial problem, they have to manage what they are saying. But we are so prideful. We think we are above everybody else. And the world is already shaping itself around the world except North America and Europe. North America because they are prideful. Europe because they are plain stupid. Daniel said they would try to adhere to each other, but they would not. So now let's start reading then, huh?